The basketball captain walked into chemistry with a broken nose and yelled at our counselor, "Your son just jumped me behind the gym." The counselor said her son was homeschooled. The captain pointed at the security monitor. Her son was still there, with brass knuckles. The classroom door slammed open so hard it cracked against the wall, and Derek Thompson stumbled through covered in blood. Not movie blood, not nosebleed blood, the kind of blood that comes from getting your face caved in, dark, thick, streaming from his nose and the gash above his eyebrow, soaking into his torn white practice jersey. Derek was 6'3", state MVP, the guy who'd carried our basketball team to regionals 3 years running. I'd never seen him look scared in my life. He looked scared now. "Your son just jumped me behind the gym." He was pointing straight at Mrs. Dalton. She was standing at the front of Mr. Hassan's chemistry class, mid-sentence about some college application workshop, clipboard in hand, reading glasses perched on her nose, the picture of professional warmth. She didn't flinch. "Derek," she said, voice dripping with practiced concern, "my son is homeschooled. He hasn't set foot on this campus in 2 years." And that's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was about to watch everything fall apart, because I'd seen Marcus Dalton behind the gym 3 days ago, and I'd said nothing. I need to back up. My name is Jamie Reyes, junior at Westfield High. Nobody special, decent grades, ran track freshman year before I quit, worked weekends at my uncle's auto shop, the kind of kid who blends into the background, which meant I saw things. Mrs. Dalton had been the school counselor since before I started at Westfield. She was the one who gave the freshman orientation speech about safe spaces and trusted adults. She organized the mental health awareness weeks. She had a bowl of candy on her desk and tissues ready for crying students. Everyone loved her. Everyone trusted her. Her son Marcus was a different story. I'd been a freshman when it happened, the incident that supposedly got him expelled. Marcus was a senior then, big kid, wrestler's build, mean eyes. He'd cornered Ryan Okonkwo behind the science building and beaten him so badly Ryan needed reconstructive surgery on his jaw. I wasn't there, but everyone heard about it. Ryan's family wanted to press charges. Police came to the school. It was going to be a whole thing. Then suddenly, it wasn't. Marcus withdrew for homeschooling. No charges filed. No record. Ryan's family moved away over the summer, and by the time school started again, it was like Marcus Dalton had never existed. Except he had, and he never really left. The first time I saw him was October of sophomore year. I'd stayed late to finish a makeup test and was cutting through the parking lot around 5 p.m. The sun was going down, and most of the cars were gone except for the teachers' vehicles near the main entrance. That's when I noticed someone sitting on the low wall behind the gymnasium, hoodie up, smoking a cigarette, watching the parking lot like he was waiting for someone. I only saw his face for a second when he turned toward the sound of my footsteps, but I recognized him immediately. Same heavy brow, same flat, empty expression. Marcus Dalton. He saw me looking and smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile that says, "I see you seeing me." I walked faster, got to my car, drove home, told myself it was nothing. 3 weeks later, Tyler Brennan from JV basketball got jumped walking to his car after practice. Broken rib, concussion. Couldn't identify his attacker. Said the guy came from behind, wore a hoodie, didn't say a word, just beat him down and walked away. Tyler's parents filed a police report. Officer came to the school, talked to some students, talked to administration. Nothing happened. Probably someone from another school, I heard Vice Principal Kershaw say in the hallway. We've had issues with kids from Riverside causing trouble. I thought about the figure I'd seen behind the gym. I thought about saying something. Then I saw Mrs. Dalton walking down the hallway, smiling at students, asking how everyone's day was going. I kept my mouth shut. The incidents kept happening. Sarah Chen found threatening notes in her locker, unsigned, block letters. "I know what you did. You're not safe." Her car got keyed 3 times in 1 month, deep gouges spelling out words I won't repeat. Sarah went to Mrs. Dalton for help. She was the counselor, after all, the trusted adult. Mrs. Dalton listened sympathetically, nodded along, handed Sarah tissues when she cried. Then she told Sarah it was probably just mean girl drama and suggested she reflect on whether she'd done anything to make someone feel hurt. Sarah's family installed a dash cam in her car. 2 weeks later, the camera caught a figure approaching the vehicle at 11 p.m. Hoodie, tall, key in hand. The footage was grainy, but Sarah swore she recognized him. "It's Marcus Dalton," she told her parents, the counselor's son. Her parents called the school, demanded a meeting with Principal Hartley. Mrs. Dalton was in that meeting. "I understand this is frightening," Mrs. Dalton said, according to Sarah's mom, who told my mom, who told me. "But my son has been homeschooled for over a year. He's never on campus. The figure in that video could be anyone." She suggested that Sarah was under a lot of stress and might benefit from speaking with a professional. She offered to provide referrals. Sarah's family backed off. What else could they do? The footage was too grainy for a positive ID. The police said there wasn't enough evidence to investigate. Mrs. Dalton had an answer for everything. And slowly, I watched Sarah start to doubt herself. "Maybe I was wrong," she said in the hallway one day, voice flat. "Maybe it wasn't him." That's what Mrs. Dalton did. She didn't just protect her son. She made you feel crazy for even suggesting he existed. By the time junior junior year started. Marcus Dalton had become a ghost story. Some kids whispered about him. Others said the whole thing was made up. Urban legend stuff, like the hook-handed killer or the calls coming from inside the house. Mrs. Dalton's son isn't real, I heard a sophomore say once. It's just something people made up to explain random stuff that happens. But I knew he was real. I'd seen him, and I wasn't the only one. Derek Thompson had seen him too. Derek was the kind of guy who didn't scare easy. Basketball captain, built like a tank. Smart too. 3.8 GPA, 3 scholarship offers sitting on his desk from Duke, Michigan, and UCLA. He had everything going for him, and he knew it. He also had no patience for bullshit. The first time he saw Marcus was early November, about 6 weeks before everything exploded. He'd stayed late for extra practice and was walking to his car when he spotted someone lurking near the equipment shed. Derek didn't look away, didn't pretend he hadn't seen anything. He walked straight toward the figure and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing here?" The figure took off running. Derek chased him, lost him somewhere near the tennis courts, but he got close enough to see the face. Marcus Dalton. The next morning, Derek went straight to Principal Hartley's office. "There's a guy hanging around campus," he said. "Mrs. Dalton's son, the one who beat up that kid a couple years ago. I saw him behind the equipment shed last night." Principal Hartley listened, took notes, said he'd look into it. An hour later, Derek got called to Mrs. Dalton's office. I know what happened in that meeting because Derek told me about it afterward. We weren't friends exactly, but we had the same lunch period, and he sat down across from me at the table near the window, looking like he'd just seen something that didn't make sense. "She threatened me," he said. "What?" "Mrs. Dalton." He shook his head slowly. "She called me into her office and straight up threatened me." He told me how it went. The soft voice, the concerned expression, the way she tilted her head like she was trying to understand a confused child. "Derek, these accusations are very serious. False reports can have real consequences." She'd let that sink in. "Your college applications are still pending. Scholarship committees look at character references from school officials. I'd hate to see your future ruined over a misunderstanding." She smiled. "I'm sure you just saw someone who looked similar. These things happen. Let's just move past it, okay?" Derek told me his hands were shaking by the end of the meeting. Not from fear, from anger. Because he knew exactly what she was doing, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. "I'm going to get proof," he said. "Next time I see him, I'm getting it on video." I should have told him what I knew then. I should have told him I'd seen Marcus too, but I was scared. Mrs. Dalton had a way of making people who caused problems disappear, not physically, but socially. Kids who pushed too hard suddenly had disciplinary issues in their files. Teachers who asked questions found themselves on the wrong end of parent complaints. So I did what I always did. I kept my mouth shut. The next 3 weeks were quiet. No incidents, no sightings. Derek kept his head down and focused on basketball. They had a big game coming up against Lincoln, and scouts from 2 of his scholarship schools were going to be there. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe Marcus had finally moved on. Maybe Mrs. Dalton had warned him to stay away. Maybe the whole thing would just fade into another half-forgotten rumor. Then came December 14th. I was in Mr. Hassan's third-period chemistry class when it happened. Mrs. Dalton had come in to make an announcement about some college prep workshop she was organizing. Standard stuff. She was standing at the front of the room, clipboard in hand, going through the details in that smooth, warm voice she used for everything. "And I really encourage all of you to attend. These sessions can make a real difference in your application process." That's when the door slammed open. Derek stumbled in, and the first thing I noticed was the blood. It was everywhere, streaming from his nose, dripping from the cut above his eye, soaking into his white practice jersey and spreading dark stains. His left eye was swollen almost shut, and he was holding his ribs like they might fall out if he let go. The whole class gasped. Someone screamed. Derek didn't look at any of us. He looked straight at Mrs. Dalton. "Your son just jumped me behind the gym." The words came out ragged, furious, soaked in pain. Mrs. Dalton's expression didn't change. Not one flicker of surprise. Not one moment of maternal concern. She just sighed. "Derek," she said, voice dripping with practiced patience, "my son is homeschooled. He hasn't set foot on this campus in 2 years. You're a liar. I think you're confused." She tilted her head, that same sympathetic angle she used on everyone. Head injuries can do that. Someone should take him to the nurse. She was already doing it, already spinning the narrative, making Derek look crazy, making the class feel like they were watching a confused, injured boy lash out at an innocent woman. I could feel the room shifting. Derek was shaking, blood dripping onto the linoleum floor, and Mrs. Dalton was winning. "He had brass knuckles," Derek said, voice cracking. "He waited for me behind the dumpsters, jumped me from behind." Mrs. Dalton shook her head sadly. "Derek, I understand you're upset, but making false accusations against my family isn't going to help anyone." She turned to Mr. Hassan. "Could you call the nurse? And maybe security? I think Derek needs medical attention." It was over. I could see it happening in real time. The story being written, the narrative being set. Derek Thompson, head injury, confusion, false accusations. Mrs. Dalton, innocent victim, concerned professional. Then Derek pointed at the corner of the classroom. "Pull up the gym camera." Every classroom at Westfield had a security monitor mounted in the corner. It was part of a system they'd installed the year before after some parent committee raised raised concerns about campus safety. Live feeds from cameras around the building, cycling through different views every 30 seconds. Most of the time, nobody paid attention to it. Just another screen showing empty hallways and parking lots. But Derek was pointing at it like it was the only thing in the room that mattered. "Pull up the gym camera," he said again. "Right now." Mrs. Dalton's smile twitched. It was small, just a tiny crack in the mask, but I saw it. "That won't be necessary," she said quickly. "This is a counseling matter. I'll handle it privately. Pull it up." Mr. Hassan looked between Derek and Mrs. Dalton. He was a good teacher, tough but fair, didn't take crap from anyone. He'd been at Westfield for 12 years, and I'd never seen him look as uncomfortable as he did right then. "Mrs. Dalton," he said slowly, "if there's footage that could clarify what happened, there's nothing to clarify. This boy is confused and needs medical attention. Pull it up." Derek's voice had gone flat, cold. He wasn't asking anymore. Mr. Hassan walked to his computer. Mrs. Dalton took a step toward him. "Gary, I really don't think," he clicked. The security monitor in the corner switched to the feed from the camera behind the gymnasium. Time-stamped 10:03 a.m., 19 minutes ago. The image was clear, crisp, high definition, because the new security system was state-of-the-art, and there was Marcus Dalton, same face from the old yearbooks, same heavy brow, same flat expression, standing over Derek Thompson's crumpled body, fists raised, metal glinting on his knuckles. The video played in silence. We watched Marcus throw the first punch, a sucker shot from behind that dropped Derek to his knees. We watched him keep hitting, methodical and unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. We watched Derek try to get up, try to fight back, and get kicked in the ribs for his trouble. We watched Marcus step back, admire his work, and light a cigarette. Then the feed switched to live view, and Marcus was still there, right now, real time, sitting behind the dumpster, smoking that same cigarette. Brass knuckles still on his hand. The classroom went dead silent. 23 students, one teacher, one school counselor. Nobody breathed. Then, slowly, everyone turned to look at Mrs. Dalton. Her face had gone gray, actually gray, like someone had drained the blood out of her. Her hands were shaking, and the clipboard slipped from her fingers, clattering against the floor. He wasn't supposed to. She caught herself, but it was too late. He wasn't supposed to. That's not my son. There must be some mistake. Not even I don't know who that is. He wasn't supposed to. She knew. She'd always known. Mr. Hassan was already on the phone. "This is Gary Hassan at Westfield High School. I need to report an assault. The suspect is still on premises, behind the gymnasium, armed with brass knuckles." He gave the details in a calm, professional voice, while Mrs. Dalton stood frozen at the front of the room. "Yes, I can confirm visual identification. The attack is on security footage. The suspect is visible on live camera right now." He paused. "There may be additional charges. The suspect's mother is a school employee who appears to have been aware of his presence on campus." Mrs. Dalton's head snapped toward him. "Gary, you don't understand." "Ma'am, I'd recommend you don't say anything else until you've spoken with a lawyer." She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. Two students blocked her path. Derek had pulled himself upright, one hand still pressed against his ribs, blood still streaming down his face, but his voice was steady. "You're not going anywhere. Derek, please." "You covered for him for 2 years." His voice cracked. "You threatened everyone who tried to report him. Tyler, Sarah, me. I was protecting my son. You were protecting a predator." The police arrived in 4 minutes. We watched through the classroom windows as 2 officers crossed the parking lot toward the gymnasium. We watched them disappear around the corner. 3 minutes later, they emerged with Marcus Dalton in handcuffs. He wasn't fighting, wasn't even trying to run. He walked between the officers with that same flat expression, like none of this mattered to him. They put him in the back of a patrol car. Then they came back for his mother. Mrs. Dalton didn't resist when Officer Patricia Vance read her rights. She just stood there, hands behind her back, face blank, while the words washed over her. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The whole class watched through the windows as they walked her out of the building. 15 years she'd worked at Westfield. 15 years of assemblies and counseling sessions and college application workshops. 15 years of being the trusted adult, the warm smile, the safe space, all of it ending in handcuffs. Walking past the security camera she'd forgotten existed. The aftermath was chaos. Principal Hartley called an emergency assembly. Parents flooded the front office with phone calls. Local news vans appeared in the parking lot by lunch, and the stories started coming out. Tyler Brennan's parents filed a new police report, citing the security footage as evidence that Marcus had been on campus the night Tyler was attacked. Sarah Chen came forward with her dashcam footage, now that someone might actually look at it. 3 other students reported incidents they'd never told anyone about, not because they didn't want to, but because Mrs. Dalton had made them feel crazy for even considering it. And Derek? Derek sat in the nurse's office with an ice pack on his face, broken nose packed with gauze, answering questions from Detective Robert Okonkwo, Ryan Okonkwo's uncle, it turned out. The same kid Marcus had beaten so badly he'd needed reconstructive surgery. The universe has a sense of humor sometimes. Over the next week, the full scope of what Mrs. Dalton had done became clear. She'd filed false statements with the school board, claiming Marcus was enrolled in a certified certified homeschool program. He wasn't. The program didn't exist. She'd forged the documentation herself. She'd intercepted and buried at least 6 formal complaints about suspicious activity on campus, including 2 that specifically mentioned Marcus by name. She'd used her position to access student files and identify which kids might cause problems. The ones with parents who'd push back, the ones with connections to lawyers or journalists. Those kids she left alone. The others, she systematically discredited them. Bad grades suddenly appeared in their records. Disciplinary notes materialized out of nowhere. One girl who'd tried to report Marcus found herself suspended for academic dishonesty 2 days later. It was all in her files. Every manipulation, every cover-up, documented in meticulous detail on her office computer. She kept records of everything, Detective Okonkwo told the press. I've been doing this job for 22 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Marcus Dalton was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, stalking, and criminal harassment. He was 17, but the prosecutor filed to try him as an adult. Mrs. Dalton faced charges of obstruction of justice, filing false reports, witness intimidation, and official misconduct. Her bail was set at $150,000. She posted it within 24 hours, but she wasn't welcome back at Westfield. The school board met in emergency session and terminated her employment immediately. The teaching license she'd held for 18 years was suspended pending investigation. I heard she tried to go to the grocery store a few days after she posted bail. She made it about 10 minutes before someone recognized her, posted her photo online with a description of what she'd done. She hasn't been seen in public since. Derek's scholarship offers weren't affected. If anything, what happened made him more attractive to recruiters. Courageous student exposes systematic cover-up, made for a better story than basketball captain with good stats. His broken nose healed. His ribs took longer, but by February, he was back on the court, and Westfield won the regional championship in March. I watched from the stands as he held up the trophy, cameras flashing, crowd screaming his name. He caught my eye once, just for a second. I'd finally told the police what I'd seen. Marcus behind the gym, October of sophomore year. It wasn't much, just one more data point in a mountain of evidence. But Derek knew I'd come forward when it mattered. He gave me a small nod. I nodded back. Mrs. Dalton's trial was scheduled for September. The prosecutor had offered a plea deal, 5 years out and 3 with good behavior, but she'd refused. Apparently, she still believed she could talk her way out of it, convince a jury she was just a mother protecting her child. Maybe she could. People like her were good at that, good at making you doubt yourself, making you feel crazy, making you believe the evidence of your own eyes was wrong. But this time, there was footage. This time, there were records. This time, the mask had slipped in front of 23 witnesses who'd watched her say the words that ended her career. He wasn't supposed to. Not, I didn't know. Not, this is impossible. He wasn't supposed to. I think about that sometimes, the way she phrased it. Not shock that her son was on campus, but frustration that he'd been caught. She'd known the whole time, protected him the whole time. And when it all came crashing down, her first instinct wasn't horror at what he'd done. It was anger that he'd done it somewhere a camera could see. The last time I saw Mrs. Dalton was at a preliminary hearing in October. I'd been called to testify about what I'd witnessed in the classroom that day. Derek stumbling in, the confrontation, the moment she'd grabbed her purse and tried to leave. She was sitting at the defense table in a gray blazer, hair pulled back, trying to project the same professional warmth she'd used on students for 15 years, but her hands were shaking, and when she looked at me, really looked at me, for just a second, I saw something underneath the mask. Not regret, not shame, fear, the same fear she'd put in Tyler and Sarah and Derek and everyone else who'd tried to tell the truth. I held her gaze until she looked away. They say the system failed, and it did, in a lot of ways. Too many people believed Mrs. Dalton because she had a title and a warm smile. Too many complaints got buried because it was easier to dismiss them than investigate. Too many kids got hurt because the person who was supposed to protect them was the one enabling their attacker. But here's the thing I keep coming back to. Derek didn't give up. Even when she threatened his future. Even when nobody believed him. Even when it would have been so much easier to just walk away, keep his head down, and focus on his scholarships. He came back, bloody and broken and furious, and he pointed at that camera because he knew. Somewhere there was proof. Somewhere the truth was recorded, and he was right. Mrs. Dalton thought she controlled the narrative. She thought she could make reality whatever she wanted it to be. Could erase her son's violence the same way she erased his school records. Could make victims doubt their own experiences. Could smile her way through any accusation, but she couldn't erase the cameras. She couldn't delete the footage. She couldn't make 23 witnesses forget what they'd seen. The truth was always there, recorded, waiting. She just forgot to look up.